The Taboo Room. Ask Katie Hopkins why she left her radio show at LBC.
At 10 o'clock on a Sunday. And I was so lucky and happy to be given that show. And actually, we did the press picks for the launch of that show. I left my ward at the Hospital for Neurology, where I'd just had my massive surgery. I was there for about 3 months, I had to learn to walk and stuff. And I went to do the press picks for my new LBC show straight out of the ward, where I was rebuilding my head and arms and leg. And so I didn't know in my heart, and this is another big distance between real me and sort of people fronting me, is I didn't know if I would be able to do a radio show, because I didn't know if I would have the language and the cognitive ability, because speech was one of the things that I could have lost. My left arm, my left leg. I didn't know, would I have the kind of linguistic dexterity to still be able to do a radio show? So I had that private doubt, which was massive, and I had a radio show, but the radio show was, it turns out I did still have it, and I could still talk, and then people loved it, and it became the most listened to Sunday radio show on commercial radio stations, but it was the most listened to. So people would, they call it appointment listening, right? So people turn in just for that show. And my main audience, wildly enough, was 21 to 35-year-olds. So I had what should have been heart and like cool stuff. They were listening to LBC political commentary phone-in show. And it really pissed off the people at heart, because they couldn't get it. Why? And I know why. It was because a lot of young people, disagree if they wanted, couldn't find anyone just speaking their own truth, like talking their stuff, not minding being disliked, having callers ring in and go, "You are such a bitch, you know that. You are an asshole, you disrespect the faith, you did blah, blah, blah." And I would let them fly, you know, and it was great, because they really meant it. And I would go, "I get it, you really dislike me and what I say." And you don't hear that anymore on radio. You can't find that anywhere. And so it was super, super popular. But there was a terrorist attack on, I think it was Westminster Bridge, I'm unsure, or London Bridge, one of the terrorist attacks. And my editor got in touch from Daily Mail and was like, bloody go ballistic, which meant for him, get writing and let it go, let it fly. And I was deeply upset. And this chimes with military and wanting to protect a country. And I went to Twitter and went, we need a final solution to terror in the UK. And I'm kind of trying to evoke the idea of a lasting solution. This, no more, never again, like the Dutch used to say about flooding, right? Never again, and they meant it. But instead of typing never again, I put final solution. And if you're anything to do with the Jewish community, that's offensive. If I can say, without wishing to antagonize further, it is still unclear to me why final solution is owned entirely by anyone. That is just 2 words and a phrase. And if you did try and just translate it in the way I meant it, lasting solution. But I'm not trying to defend it. I am trying to say I don't think any nation should have, or any religion has, ownership over words. But The Guardian, and I had some inside scoop, someone messaged me to say that The Guardian in their morning conference, which is how newspapers work, basically made it their thing. We're getting rid of Katie Hopkins today. And I got word. So anybody who ever contributed to LBC signed a thing to say they wouldn't come back on to LBC if I was kept on. And then there was a petition and there was the rest of it. But it was actually the pressure of all of those guests, high, decent political figures that we need. LBC needs guests to operate. And it was at a very high level, the top of government, saying we won't come on again if she has her show. And so I had to go into that building for my meeting knowing that I would be gone. And I was let go. I was taken into a room with 2 guys, my boss and the legal guy. And they said, look, we just can't keep you. And it was very, very, very sad for all sorts of reasons. And people will say, well, you deserved it. You tweeted those words and that's unforgivable. But actually, I miss that show so much. And it's the thing I miss. You asked her actually what would be the sad moment. That would be definitely one of the saddest, because it was nothing to do, I couldn't care less about me or the show, but I so loved that people would ring me on a Sunday and they would ring me in their pajamas and I could almost see them. Like they would ring me in their kitchen, they'd be getting their family lunch or whatever, but they were in their jimmies, and because of that, they would tell you things as if they were telling you their secrets. I guess a little bit how you feel when you're speaking to people and they tell you stuff they wouldn't tell someone else. And they would say it, and it was on radio, but they were saying, you know, I feel so upset because, and they would share this, and it was like a way of being in someone's actual home and listening to them talk. And that's why I miss it so much. And in fact, even as I was fired, my boss, James, who knew I could do radio well, we talked about how they were going to announce letting me go because they knew the sort of backlash was going to be horrific for them, because the supporters who love that show still love it. And so I worked with him on the timing of when they were going to tell people that I'd been humiliated and fired so that it would be less bad for LBC, because I still love my show. So I had a female producer at LBC and I loved her so much, and she was the opposite of me in every way. Not that her sexuality mattered, so she's a gay woman, but she's from the left. She loved The Guardian. She was as woke, but she is my producer. And we created this show that just was great. And I said when I leave, please, whatever happens next, please have a female producer, because there's so few on the ground. But they didn't do that either. So that's my sadness, losing my radio. I would love my radio show back, or a radio show, but it would need to be a radio show.